Hi guys, we are the Avoidants.
Hi, I'm Ayin.
I'm Alicia.
I'm Phoebe.
I'm Erica.
And I'm Ashley. On today's podcast, we'll be discussing about jealousy, an emotion most of us have felt, but few of us really understand.
Jealousy is a powerful emotion that can shape romantic relationships, sometimes strengthening bonds, but other times contributing to conflict and even relationship deterioration. In this podcast, we'll be exploring jealousy and its role in relationship dissolution, looking at how it develops, how people respond to it, and when it becomes harmful. Joining us today is Farhan, who has been in a committed relationship for over 13 years. With such a long-term partnership, his experiences offer valuable insight into how jealousy evolves over time, especially when two people's lives and identities become deeply intertwined. This topic matters because in long-term relationships, emotional investment is higher, and threats to the relationship can feel more significant. By speaking with someone like Farhan, we hope to better understand whether jealousy can be managed in healthy, constructive ways or whether it can gradually lead to tension and strain.
Our first article, A Friend of Yours is No Friend of Mine by Gomilian et al., examines how jealousy can not only arise from romantic rivals, but from a partner's close friends as well. The authors argue that people can feel threatened when their partner's friends appear to be more emotionally significant, especially when they seem to hold high centrality in their partner's social and emotional life. The research talks about how friends can also compete for time, attention, and emotional support. The researchers conducted 3 studies and hypothesized that jealousy may arise when a romantic partner's same-sex friends threaten one's central role in their partner's life, and jealousy would increase further when there is uncertainty or doubt about their partner's commitment. Furthermore, individuals will then view their partner's friends more negatively when they feel threatened in the relationship. As a result, jealousy can shape behavior, leading to withdrawal, possessiveness, and negative perceptions about their partner's friends. Overall, the findings suggest that jealousy is driven by threats to belongingness and perceived replacement within the relationship, and increases when individuals doubt their partner's commitment.
Moving on, our second article, Who Am I Without You, by Slaughter and colleagues, looks into how romantic relationship breakups affect an individual's self-concept content and self-concept clarity. Through a quantitative longitudinal research design, the researchers collected self-reported data for 3 studies from individuals who had recently experienced a breakup to track changes over time. The authors argue that close relationships significantly contribute to the development of the self, as individuals often incorporate aspects of their partner into their identity. Following a breakup, this integration is disrupted, leading to a decline in self-concept clarity, categorized by confusion and uncertainty about one's identity. The studies highlight that individuals with highly intertwined identities experience greater psychological distress and a more pronounced loss of self-concept clarity after relationship dissolution. Furthermore, the findings suggest that recovery is associated with the process of self-reconstruction, whereby individuals re-establish personal goals, interests, and independence. Overall, the article contributes to existing literature by emphasizing the central role of self-concept clarity in post-breakup adjustment and emotional well-being.
Lastly, our third article by Barrett and colleagues examined how dark triad personality traits, narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy relate to different types of jealousy in romantic relationships, and whether these patterns vary by gender or sexual orientation. A total of 439 participants completed an online survey measuring reactive jealousy, an emotional response to actual threats, anxious jealousy involving worry and suspicion, and preventive jealousy, controlling or monitoring a partner's behavior. Generally, the effects were weak. The dark triad traits were not significantly related to reactive jealousy, suggesting emotional responses to real threats are fairly universal. However, anxious jealousy showed small positive associations with narcissism and Machiavellianism, indicating greater suspicion and insecurity among individuals higher in these traits. Preventive jealousy was linked to all 3 dark triad traits, suggesting greater tendency towards controlling behaviors. Gender differences emerged where women reported higher reactive jealousy, while men scored higher on Machiavellianism and psychopathy. Heterosexual participants also reported higher reactive jealousy. Overall, personality influences how jealousy is expressed, with dark triad traits linked more to controlling and suspicious behaviors than emotional reactions.
Across these three articles, a key shared theme is that jealousy is rooted in perceived threats to one's identity or security within a relationship. However, they differ in focus. The first article emphasizes that jealousy can arise in a partner's close friend, as well as claiming and which threatens one's role in the relationship. The second highlights post-breakup identity consequences, while the third examines how stable personality traits can shape how jealousy is expressed. Together, they suggest that jealousy is both context-dependent and influenced by individual differences. This connects to Farhan's experiences as being in a long-term relationship likely involves both evolving external dynamics such as social circles and life changes and deeper identity intertwining, which may shape how jealousy is felt and managed over time. As we move into the interview, we're interested in seeing whether Farhan's experiences reflect these patterns, particularly how he navigates potential threats, maintains trust, and also manages emotions in long-term partnership.
Introducing our special guest.
I'm Farhan. So I'm actually a wealth manager in Singapore. So I'm a husband and a father of four. So just a bit of background. My wife and I have known each other since 2009. Through our poly days, we are from Ngee Poly. So we got married in 2016. Don't ask me how many years, I need to count. So for me, we've actually gone through many versions of life already lah. From student, just starting out, got married, kids, blah blah blah. Now with 4 kids and all. So marriage for me is probably how I perceive marriage is slightly different from other people. So like what people always imagine that marriage is all about having deep talks, nice moment. Of course, sometimes yes lah. I mean, I don't deny that, but it's just that sometimes you need to have. It's not about theory lah. So it's about deeper than that. So marriage itself is not just about love, like I mentioned. It's deeper than that. And over time, you will realize that marriage is more about trust, communication, and how you actually show up in the marriage itself.
So to start off, could you tell us a bit about your relationship dynamic and how it has evolved over time?
I think in the beginning of our relationship, I think like most couples, I mean, you guys may know some. There was, of course, more emotion, more assumptions, and definitely more ego lah. And when we are younger, or when you guys are younger, you think that love is everything. As long as there's love, the rest will somehow sort itself out. But truth to be told, after marriage itself, with children, responsibilities, and all those other added stress or other responsibilities, right? You realize that actually love itself is not enough. So I typically say over time that some relationships will become less about chemistry and actually more about partnership. That's why you hear phrases like marriage is all about partnerships, communication, teamwork. So and all that things lah. And definitely as a man myself, right, one thing that is clear for me is that or something that I believe is that my wife actually don't need all these sweet words lah. What she needs is something that I'm able to create the steadiness. She needs to know that when things happen in the house or when the marriage itself gets hard, right, they will not be burdened by it lah. So same thing on the other side. As a man, I also want that home to feel like a place where I am respected, not a place like everything's become like, no, sometimes when we go to work, it's really stressful at the work environment. So that is where we need the house to be carried or to be taken care of lah. Yeah, especially when you got kids lah. So especially today, right, I see a lot of couples that are more connected than ever, but also they are more exposed. Reason why I say that is that there's too many opinions, too much comparison and access into their relationship. And even these small things, right, will become amplified by all the, now there is what? Family WhatsApp groups, Instagram, TikTok, highlight reels, and this is where in this current digital age, right, the phones and the social media itself can actually become a source of distraction and jealousy in relationships lah. Yeah, so, and even financially, I think relationship involved around that also. So, I mean, people, you may hear lah, I think people say that, oh, money is not everything. But when we are younger, right, we tend to just follow what people do lah. Yeah, so as we grow older, all these things we usually want to break up from the norm. So it's not really by default kind of thing lah. Yeah. So when relationship move from just feelings, right, into real life, right, so the jealousy will start to show up in a different way lah. That's what I believe it is. And it applies to even in your other aspects of the life itself. Yeah.
So what you're saying is jealousy occurs because of comparison through like
Yep.
Instagram or like social media, and also like
Yeah.
people's expectations on your relationship between the two of you. And you also said that, right, some key changes would be earlier you'll be thinking of this as more love, more passion, but then afterwards it turns into a partnership, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
So for our next question, Alicia.
Yep. So if you don't mind sharing with us, can you share an experience where you felt jealous in your relationship? What were your thoughts and how did you respond to it?
Okay, I mean, interesting question. So I'll answer it slightly different. So I probably answer it through someone close to me, because I think many men will actually quietly recognize themselves in this. So a close friend actually once shared with me that there was a period where his wife kept mentioning another husband in their close circle. So I mean, nothing scandalous or anything lah, nothing inappropriate. Just comments like, wow, he's very hands-on with the kids, or something like, he already planned this for his family, or he quite on the ball, blah blah blah, and all that lah. I think these are some common comments or feedbacks that some people will receive. So I mean, for some it sounded like a small comment, but I mean me myself, I'm a man myself, right? So men, sometimes it just only takes like 2-3 comments, then outside we will act all normal, but inside the ego has already booked like increased lah. Yeah. So and what got triggered in him wasn't really jealousy over the other guy as a person. So it was more of the comparison. So his thoughts were more like, am I not doing enough? Is that how she sees me now? Or something like, am I actually falling short as her husband? Yeah, so, and it
So
creates,
it's like keeping your self-esteem.
correct. So I think it's more of ego lah, I would feel. And because of that comparison, it brings him down. So it's like, am I slowly being measured against someone else? Yeah, so this is some of the things that kept playing in I mean, at the end of the day, we are all humans lah. So he kept playing in his head that all these negative thoughts or negative feedback lah. So how he actually responded was like, at first it was bad lah, like how most men would probably think. So he became quieter, he shrugged off, he became cold lah in that sense, more defensive. But and then sometimes when we say, oh, nothing yeah, but on the other side, your partner would feel that there's something that you are actually trying to tell. And actually, after sitting with it for a while, right, he realized the issue wasn't with that man itself, But the real issue was it touched his, I would not say ego, I would say the word would be insecurity lah, whether he was really carrying that responsibilities properly. So eventually what he did was to speak to his wife properly and yeah, just be honest lah. So he told her that, maybe you didn't mean it that way, but when I myself keep hearing that, right, it makes me feel like I'm being compared and it gets to me. So actually that competition itself, actually it helped a lot, especially in marriages, in relationships. Yeah, because the wife, I mean, intentionally or unintentionally, the wife wasn't trying to actually disrespect him or what sort lah. She was just trying to express a need, but the way it landed sounded like a comparison in that sense. Yeah, so I think that happens a lot today. I see that many men are not actually jealous, like how other people imagine, but they just afraid of not being enough. And because we have ego as men, we don't always show that fear quickly. Sometimes we'll take days, we'll keep inside and all that lah. So for some women, right, they always think that, oh, this is just a comment. But for us, we think of it as more of a ranking, a comparison between A and B, a ranking. And once ego gets mixed or gets involved, right, every sentences, right, can actually lead to one another lah. You will amplify and all that. So just to summarize your question, so what I take from this question is this lah. As men, we do feel jealous, but a lot of times it just come out through ego. So that's why we are more defensive. What we are trying to say here, we always hide that phrase that I feel jealous. Yeah, so and sadly enough, that if it's not handled properly, like it can become a resentment and it can lead towards other things in the marriage lah. So for me, jealousy is not always things that is random, but rather it always point to something that an underlying reason underneath it lah, like how it happens. Yeah.
So would you say that like communicating the issue helped them solve it?
I mean, definitely definitely communication is one of the major things that or major factor as to why marriages fail. Yeah. So I've met other clients and all that, right? I know friends that has divorced and everything. I got friends that the wife or the ex-wife ran away with the kids, don't allow access and everything. All that is, for me personally, I feel is due to poor communication. Yeah. And every time that happens, unfortunately, the kids suffer lah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, moving on. The question.
Okay, so with your view of jealousy, do you see it as something harmful or can it be like helpful to the relationship? So like when do you think it can become serious enough to affect a relationship negatively?
Okay, so your question is how do I personally view jealousy, right? I mean, personally, I don't think jealousy is always bad. Sometimes it just shows you that something is lacking or something is off lah. Maybe that your partner feels neglected, or maybe the boundaries are not set that strong, or maybe there's not enough reassurance. Yeah. And probably myself or my partner felt that we are being disrespected, or just having that safe space lah. They just feel it's unsafe lah. So in that sense, jealousy can actually expose something that needs attention. Yeah. So I think I also think that couples who actually stayed together actually responded positively to each other's, right, for connection is important lah. Because if not, like I mentioned, that if you got no communication, right, and the jealousy is not handled properly, it may just lead to other things lah. But definitely, again, it doesn't apply to all couples. Different couples or different marriages, different relationships actually works differently, different philosophies and everything lah. So a lot of jealousy actually grows in the gaps or small, I would say, disconnection, rather than betrayal that you see out there lah. So the problem is when people don't know what to do with the jealousy itself. So if jealousy, right, makes you reflect, communicate, and actually fix the underlying problem, actually it can actually help the relationship lah. And once it turns into like accusing lah, controlling, punishing your partner, or even keep pressing the button, people call it pressing the pinpoints, it will become quite ugly lah. Yeah. So, and from a man perspective, right, I think it actually matters because men can actually, for me lah, my personal opinion that we can easily confuse between control with leadership lah. So leadership is actually to create a steadiness, while control usually comes from of fear. Yeah, they feel unsafe. Yeah, so to be fair, women can also mishandle jealousy in that sense through comparison, all these small comments, yeah, and making the man feel like he's always one step behind, or the husband or the partner lah. So it's actually not a one-sided issue lah. So for me, jealousy is useful only if it pushes the couple or the marriage towards honesty. So if it actually makes both couple of both people, right, more defensive, it will start to damage their relationship, or worse, it damage their home lah. Yeah. So I think over time, jealousy itself might or might not change a person lah. Yeah.
Moving on.
Okay, so thank you for your response on that. So having said all of that, in your experience, has jealousy changed over the course of the years? So has it increased or has it decreased? Yeah.
I mean, definitely it changes. I mean, nothing stays stagnant, right? Even in careers, even in other things. So, of course, in the earlier stage of a relationship, jealousy would usually become more obvious lah. Yeah, more emotional, more tied to attention, insecurity, reassurance, and later on in a longer relationship, it becomes less about surface things, and it actually becomes more about the deeper ones lah. So it becomes less of who are you talking to, all these type of things, right? Who are you talking to? And more like do I still matter to you? Yeah, all this I would say is reassurance. So do I feel respected here? Do I still feel safe with you? Yeah, so all these things lah. And personally, I don't think jealousy always disappear with time. I think it either matures or it becomes like what word is that? Like cast in stone lah. It hardens lah. It becomes part of the relationship lah. So for me, if the relationship itself grows well, right, more trust, more honesty, more shared direction, then jealousy usually becomes manageable or less of a concern. It may still show up now and then, but it doesn't run the entire relationship or the entire marriage lah. But then again, if a couple keeps like avoiding all these hard conversations, right, it will let resentments pile up. So it leaves all the important things very vague. Then that is where jealousy can actually get worse over time. Yeah. So, and because it's sitting on top of years of this disappointment and unspoken hurt, right? So it become worse lah. Yeah. So I also see that today there's a lot of long-term couples that don't necessarily really break because of one big issue. Sometimes it's just slowly being worn down by comparison, distraction, emotional neglect lah. So small things, but it keeps accumulating lah. Yeah, so all this, and honestly, I think this is where many couple actually miss something important. Yeah. So to me, in a long-term relationship, respect is not always about who earns more lah. So a lot of times about who brings the peace, who brings the trust, the direction, and responsibility into the relationship or into the home itself. Yeah. So after a while, right, all these questions, right, it's not whether jealousy would ever appear, but it's rather what the couple has built that helps them to manage or to handle it properly lah. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on.
Okay, so from what I differ from whatever you just said. So apparently you're mentioning a lot about communication and like trust. So in that sense, would you say that you and your partner focus a lot on communication when it comes to managing feelings like jealousy, or do you have maybe other strategies that you all have come up with together to manage this feeling of jealousy?
Okay, good question. So I think to answer that, right, one big thing that I always believe is that don't go silence lah. So a lot of people think that silence would mean like you're being mature, or silence means maturity in that sense. But I mean, not always. Sometimes silence, for me lah, silence means ego. So one thing that actually helps is speaking earlier. So speaking earlier, communicating earlier, not waiting until the issue becomes much bigger than it needed to be. So another thing is actually learning to ask, what is the real issue here? Yeah, because why I say that is because sometimes the argument is not about the thing itself. It's not really about the comment or the message or even the tone. Sometimes the real issue is just that it's the feeling of unseen, like unappreciated, unsupported, and more of disrespected, or just probably just unsettled lah. Yeah, so over time, I think we also learned that, like what I mentioned, reassurance matters. Having that clarity matters, and saying things before they become amplified lah. Yeah. So for me, right, practical side of things actually matters lah. So yeah, so it's not about saying like, don't worry, I got this. Yeah, but actually to actually show it. How? Yeah, through everything lah, through like your all your financial needs lah, make sure your family is taken care of, your career, everything is all sorted out. Yeah, so I mean, it may not sound romantic, but this is actually much more important, or much as you go into the relationship, right? This is something that actually what your partner actually wants lah. Yeah, so this is something that I always believe in. And I actually read somewhere that couples who actually consistently turn towards each other's small things for connection, right, actually do much, much better over time than couples, right, who actually everything also like, turn away. So sometimes, yeah, all these small daily habits, right, needs to be fixed lah. Yeah, so yeah lah. So this is what my take is like.
Understand. Okay, so with that, right, because you are personally in a very long-term relationship, so what we want to find out is, do you maybe have any advice that you will give younger couples about handling jealousy early on, like what you mentioned just now, before it like escalates into a big issue or maybe eventually a breakup?
Interesting. So, for me, I mean, I've been in a relationship since polytechnic until today. So for me, for all the younger couples, even my own siblings and all that, I probably say this lah, like don't wait for your first. I mean, to be blunt, right? Don't wait for your first major fight or argument before you learn how to communicate lah. Yeah. So boundaries have to be set, expectations have to be set. And the most important is not to let outside opinions become how should I put it? Become louder than your own relationship, or become like add in to set the tone for your relationship, or set the principle or philosophy for your relationship. Yeah. And then for me, I would say that don't treat jealousy, or don't make it a norm for jealousy to be like a proof of love. But then again, don't dismiss it so quickly that you would miss what your partner is trying to show you lah. Yeah. So always build your relationship with trust, with clarity, all the positive habits, the mindset, and with your own values, your own principle and all that lah. Because actually, I mean, I always believe that some relationships don't actually break because there was no love lah. Actually, basically, it's just there's no structure lah in that relationship. That's why it broke. Yeah. So I think also the longer I married, the longer I got married, I also realized this, that love actually matters, but love alone is not enough lah. So actually, marriage is way 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 more than that. It's always a learning cycle. Yeah. So, but it's more of the emotion side of things. It needs both people to actually feel that they are not just I would say surviving this life together, but rather building something together lah. Yeah. So this is what I feel this whole topic is lah. Yeah.
Thank you for your answer.
Yeah.
So, to wrap up,
Hmm.
you basically talked about the importance of communication and how jealousy isn't just harmful, it can actually lead to bettering the relationship afterwards. So, for the advice you gave earlier, right, about setting boundaries, I have one last question. I wanted to ask, what kind of expectations do you think would be useful, or like to go deeper, more specific? What kind of expectations? Like, do you think it's reasonable for younger couples to have each other's passwords, or what do you think about that?
I think then again, your question comes back to trust. I think the question today should be whether there is trust in the relationship lah. Because for me, I always believe that, I mean, truth to be told, I don't put in a habit myself to actually check on my wife, her phone, or what she does. And she also don't put that into mind. I mean, technically, most couple or most people would not like that lah. Yeah, so I am not an advocate of that sharing passwords and everything. But then again, everybody has their own way of running how their relationship is. But I personally would think that would just reduce the communication or the trust within the relationship. Yeah.
Okay. So that's all the questions you have. Do you have any final thoughts to share?
No lah.
So, Erica, how's it going with you and your boyfriend?
It's okay, but he's been like really possessive lately.
Are you sure it's okay if you hang out with us today without him?
I'm not sure, but hopefully he doesn't find me.
Oh my God, babe, is that you? I thought I told you not to go out with your friends right now. What are you doing here at the beach? Come over here.
Whoa, I think you're acting really possessive right now. Are you jealous? You seem like you really need this jealousy pill. Take this pill and your feelings of jealousy will poof, go away. Here, take it.
Hmm, really? Oh my God, I think I'm not jealous anymore. I was definitely overreacting. I'm sorry, babe.
See, I told you, this pill works. Buy it now for only 6767.
Okay, guys, we're back.
So, based on what Farhan shared, there are a few key takeaways about jealousy and how it plays out in long-term relationships. First, one of the biggest things he emphasized is that relationships shift over time, from love to partnership. At the start, relationships are usually driven by emotion. There's a lot of passion, excitement, and honestly, quite a bit of ego as well. People tend to think that as long as there's love, everything else will naturally fall into place. But from his experience, especially being in a long-term marriage with children, that's not really the case. Over time, the relationship becomes less about feelings and more about teamwork, responsibility, and stability. It's about how both partners show up, how they support each other, manage responsibilities, and create a stable home environment. So his main idea here is that love alone is not enough. What really sustains a relationship long term is consistency, trust, and the ability to function as a team.
The second key point is that jealousy is often rooted in insecurity, not just other people. Farhan gave the example of how jealousy can come from something as simple as comparison. For instance, when a partner casually praises someone else, it might not be intended negatively, but it can trigger thoughts like, am I not good enough or am I being compared? So the jealousy isn't really about the third person, it's more about the internal feelings of inadequacy. He also pointed out that from his perspective, especially for men, jealousy is not always openly expressed. Instead, it tends to show up as ego, silence, or defensiveness. So rather than saying, I feel insecure, it might come out as withdrawing, being colder, or acting like nothing is wrong. And this makes it harder to address because the real issue isn't being communicated directly.
The third point is that jealousy itself is not always a bad thing. It can be either helpful or harmful. On a positive note, jealousy can actually act as a signal. It can show that something in the relationship needs attention, such as a lack of reassurance, emotional disconnection, or unclear boundaries. When handled properly, it can lead to honest conversations and improvements in the relationship. However, the problem begins when jealousy is handled poorly. Jealousy would then lead to controlling behaviors, accusations, or resentment. Instead of addressing the underlying issue, the person might start blaming their partner, trying to control their behavior, or holding onto negative feelings over time. And according to Farhan, that's when jealousy becomes damaging to the relationship.
This leads to the fourth point, which is probably the most important one Farhan stressed. Communication is the key factor. Throughout the interview, he made strong emphasis that one of the biggest reasons relationships fail is due to poor communication. Not necessarily big conflicts, but the accumulation of small unspoken issues. He highlighted a few important habits. First, speaking early whereby couples don't wait until the issue becomes bigger than it needs to be. Second, avoid staying silent. Silence is often mistaken as maturity when in reality it can come from ego or avoidance. And most importantly, focusing on the real issue behind the emotion. Sometimes, arguments are not actually what they seem. For example, it may not really be about a comment or a situation, but about feeling unappreciated, disrespected, or insecure. So effective communication means going deeper than the surface and addressing what is actually driving those feelings.
Finally, the last point is that jealousy changes over time. In the early stages of a relationship, jealousy tends to be more obvious and surface level. It's often about things like attention, who your partner is talking to, or needing reassurance. But in long-term relationships, it becomes less about those surface issues and more about deeper concerns like respect, emotional security, and whether you still matter to your partner. And importantly, he mentioned that jealousy doesn't just disappear. Instead, it either matures or builds up. If the relationship has strong trust and communication, jealousy becomes more manageable and less disruptive. But if issues are avoided over time, it can turn into resentment, which is much more damaging because it builds on years of unspoken hurt. So ultimately, it's not about whether jealousy exists, but how the couple handles it over time.
Integrating Farhan's interview with the research literature, we can see a strong overall alignment in core ideas, as both suggest that jealousy is fundamentally linked to perceived threats within a relationship, whether to one's role, identity, or emotional security. For example, Gomillion et al. Highlight jealousy arising when a partner's attention is directed towards others, while Farhan similarly describes it as stemming from comparison and feelings of not being enough, showing a shared link to insecurity and relational threat. At the same time, there are some differences in focus as the research tends to conceptualize jealousy in more structured and theoretical terms, such as categorizing types of jealousy or linking it to personality traits, whereas Farhan's perspective is more lived and practical, focusing on communication patterns, emotional responses, and everyday relationship dynamics.
A key takeaway is that jealousy is not simply a negative emotion, but a complex relational signal that can either strengthen or damage relationships, depending on how it is managed, with both sources emphasizing the importance of communication, trust, and self-concept. In real-world terms, this suggests that improving relationships may depend less on eliminating jealousy and more on responding to it in healthier ways through open communication and emotional awareness, which is also useful in counseling or relationship education, where underlying insecurities can be addressed. And with that, we have come to the end of today's episode. Thank you for listening, and we hope you learned a thing or two about jealousy. We'll see you guys in the next one.